So I'm happy to now invite our second speaker, Elizabeth, to present us her paper on, well, actually the question of the Gen Z religious e-Xpression. We're looking forward and see what's going to happen. Floor is open, and you might also share if you like.
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to share the research I'm currently working on at Global Network Digital Theology Conference this year. The reason my research is titled Generation Zoomer is because today you will hear from a member of Generation Zoomer speaking about Generation Zoomer. I'm currently 22 years old and have not yet completed my bachelor degree at Martyria Christian College in Indonesia. I have a dream of continuing my master education abroad next year, and I hope it comes true. It's nice to meet all of you here, and okay, let's get started. Otherwise, I'll be taking until morning. I will share my PowerPoint first. Wait a minute. Oh, okay. Wait. I use Gamma Appling. Yeah, we'll share. Okay. Can all of you see my share screen?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Wonderful. Mm-hmm.
If not, I will share the Gamma Appling and... Oh, okay. Please kindly tell me if the slide doesn't move. Okay, here we go. I will present it within 15 minutes. Framework as follows: background, research question, methods, research findings, conclusion, and recommendation. First, the digital era necessitates a theological introspection that could herald the advent of a novel theological paradigm recognized as cyber theology. This research delves into the perturbation of digital spiritual catechesis within the church Zoomer generation, scrutinizing the digitalization of theology in relation to spiritual instruction. Advancement in discussion on spiritual catechesis are impeded when our focus remains entrenched in traditional delineation of spirituality, spiritual methodologies, and the spiritual personnel exposed within the apostolic directives of Reformation churches in Indonesia. These apostolic calls are conditioned by the pre-digital world. A profound discourse on spiritual catechesis needs to depart from the disruption caused by the Zoomer generation. The term disruption itself, according to liberation theologian Gustavo Gutierrez, refers to their transform from being marginalized to liberation, historical subjects. Disruption is also an ecclesial process and disrupts the stage of Indonesian church history as homo religious digital. To speak about the eruption of digital spirituality and the disruption of cyber theology catechesis in Indonesia is to seek an answer to the following question: what relation is there between cyber theology in this era and the historical process of the liberation of man? In other words, we must attempt to discern the interrelationship among the different meanings of the term eruption and disruption, which we indicated above. The scope of the problem will be clarified in the course of this work, but it might be helpful to point out at this stage some of its fundamental features. The question is, what is the practice of the church in today's world regarding the theological meaning of liberation is, in truth, a question about the very meaning Christianity and about the mission of church appealing to its doctrinal and vital resources. Theology is intrinsic to a life of faith seeking to be authentic and complete and is, therefore, essential to the common consideration of this faith in the ecclesial community. There is present an effort to understand the faith, something like a pre-understanding of that faith, which is manifested in life, action, and concrete attitude. But the focus of theological work, in the strict sense of the term, has undergone many transformations throughout the history of the church. The question is essentially traditional. For me, theological reflection has always at least implicitly addressed to itself to it. In recent years, the theology of temporal realities, an expression which was never fully accepted, attempted to deal with it in its own way. We are dealing with the classical question of the relation between faith and human existence, between faith and social reality, between faith and digital spirituality, whether real or imaginary. In other words, between the kingdom of God and the building up of the world, the Bible, I call it. Within the scope of this problem, the classical dome of the church digital society or church cyber theology relationship is also considered. In this research, it combines literature and field research. Literature research involves critically appreciative readings of several key church guidance literature on cultural evangelization and the exploration of citizen journalism on cyber theology in Indonesia. Field research involves listening to the narrative of digital religious Zoomer beings themselves on the topics of evangelization and the spirituality. The combination of these two types of research is expected to assist in articulating a new understanding of spiritual evangelization catechesis in the era of cyber theology. The Zoomer generation, as digital integrators, are open to incorporating spirituality into their lives. Before their viewing embody a connective pedagogy that is distinct from pre-digital believers. Their disciples seek the spirituality's identity and they are called to teach faith lesson to disciples of Christ in the present era. The description of digital believer encourages the exploration of new cyber theology methods for spiritual catechesis in the contemporary Indonesian church context. And a reflection on the theological meaning of the process of the liberation of man throughout history demands methodologically that we define our terms in cyber theology. The term of development doesn't well express these profound aspirations. Liberation, on the other hand, seems to express them better. Moreover, in another way, the notion of liberation is more exact and all-embracing. It emphasizes that man transforms himself by conquering his liberty throughout his existence and his history. The viewpoints, therefore, permits us to consider unity without confusion of man's various dimensions, that is, his relationship with other men and with the Lord, which digitality has been attempting to establish for some time. This approach will provide the framework for our reflection too. And during this transition, the church should appreciate individuals and movement initiating national catechesis articulation, new catechetical methods, and pro-catechesis. The church can incentivize these initiators to further explore cyber theology catechesis for the digital generation Zoomer, and catechesis networking forums and showcase these efforts, inspiring others to initiate and further develop cyber theology catechesis in Indonesia. And to view development as a total social process necessarily implies for some an ethical dimension, which presupposes a concern for human values. The step toward an elaboration of a humanistic perspective of development is thus taken unconsciously, and it prolongs the former point of view without contradicting it. So, this humanistic approach attempts to place the notion of development in a wider context, a historical vision in which mankind assumes control of its own destiny. But this leads precisely to a change of perspective which after certain addition and correction we would prefer to call liberation, more integral and profound understanding of human existence and its historical future. A broad and deep aspiration for liberation influenced the history of mankind in our day, liberation from all that limits or keeps man from self-fulfillment, liberation from all impediments to the exercise of its freedom. So Gustavo Gutierrez said, the freedom to which we are called presupposes going out of oneself, the breaking down of our selfishness, and of all the structure openness to others. The fullness of liberation is a free gift from Christ, is communion with God and with other men. Generation Zoomer is introducing a disruptive spirit into the church, challenging traditional understanding of catechesis as merely teaching and learning about faith. This moment represents a kairos for the church to reimagine catechesis. Far from being a linguistic game, this new understanding of catechesis necessitates a metanoia and reformation within the church, providing it with vitality and effectiveness in articulating national catechesis. The church acknowledges that the recipients of the gospel are bound to a culture. So evangelization needs to borrow elements from human cultures. Without adopting a confrontational stance towards culture, the church recognizes the potential to permeate it. As in other eras, the separation between gospel and culture is a drama, even a tragedy of our time. The conclusion and recommendation. In the digital era, the digital space also serves as a spiritual space. Interaction and conversation within it, while not always containing spiritual content, reflects the spirituality of Generation Zoomer. The digital space becomes a venue for this generation to express their faith. Consequently, the church must be attentive and respond appropriately to these expressions, ensuring that Generation Zoomer is not lost in the digital wilderness. Plays on God are greatly done away with by the digital environment and cyber catechesis, traditional boundaries for interpersonal relationship are also transformed. The digital environment, as it has been proven, when poorly utilized, isolates people and facilitates a form of escapism. However, when wisely used, becomes extremely effective tool for people to live out our deepest aspiration to be in communion with one another. In the last recommendation from me, recognizing the digital generation Zoomer intimacy with technology, catechetical methods must innovate, transitioning from auditory, monosensory, to audiovisual, dual sensory, and eventually to multi-sensory approaches. During this transition, the church sought appreciate individual and movement initiating national catechesis articulation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for this presentation and all your insights and also the recommendations in your final part.